Okay, this is my latest project. The video is a little bit long, so please don't get frustrated. If I'm going too slow for you, go to the settings gear icon on your video and select whichever playback speed works best for you. And as soon as you get a tidbit of advice that helps you out in any way, please like and subscribe. This way it motivates me to do more of these videos. I know I should probably use a tripod and whatever, but the information is here. Just run through it and hopefully you get some use out of it. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the video. I'm almost towards the end, so I could give you tips on what I did wrong and how to avoid them and stuff like that. So this is basically what it looks like. These are precision fit square 4-inch stones, so it's a much easier installation if you have a large amount to do, as I did over here. So what I'm going to do is just show you the process that I went through and some of the things that I did wrong and what I did to correct it. Okay, so the step-by-step process. When you strip your house down for the section that you want to install the stones, you'll probably be doing siding on top or whatever. What you'll need to do, if you wrap the entire house, that's fine, but you should go over it. This is tar paper. This is 15-pound tar paper. Probably recommend getting 30, but I've used 15 and it's worked. If you're a stickler, then just get the 30. If it's not it's a much thicker paper, and you'll feel better about it. It's not that big of an expense. So what you want to do is, over the plywood, is apply your tar paper with staples, and just staple the hell out of it all over the place. Make sure you get it straight, and you overlap any seams. It should be a large project by at least 3 inches, 3 or 4 inches, and then you'll have a starting point right there. After you do that, you'll need to buy a bunch of this wire mesh that you're going to be applying over that tar paper. Now, and you'll be applying it with roofing nails. When you shoot it in, if you have a roofing gun or you're doing it by hand, try to find the studs that the sheathing is attached to. This way you have a much stronger bond, because these stones do have some weight to them. So you want to, and this is basically what's holding your stones up is this wire mesh. So find your studs and hit the studs, but don't stop there. Hit it and like just go crazy with the nails, and I think it'll be much more secure. It can't hurt, and you'll have a much sturdier base. Before applying this, there's a direction that you need to apply it. So your hand along it. If it's rough like a cheese grater, and then flow smoother in the other direction, the rough cheese grater motion is how you need to put it up, because when you apply your mortar, right, you put it up and then it won't want to slide down, because it has all these little cups that are giving you that sensation of a cheese grater that will catch all of it in all these grooves, and the mortar will stay to the wall without a problem. If you do it the other way, it'll start falling off. It'll be much more of a pain in the ass and not as secure. So let me show you what it'll look like after it's done. So this is basically what it looks like when it's done. Underneath here was the wire mesh. You could actually see it in certain spots here where it's not that thick. Here's the wire mesh, right? And right there, you can see it. And this is the surface that's prepared. Now, if you're like me and you have a cinder block foundation that's coming up halfway, this was actually painted. That was one of the mistakes that I made, because now your regular mortar, by the way, this mortar that I used here is Type S. Type S sticks a little better than than some of the other types of mortar, so I would recommend using type S mortar. And just run it down until you get the transition to here. It's a little bumpy here, but that's really not a problem. You could work that with extra mortar on your other one, and the stones aren't exactly perfect, so you'll never know the transition. You'll never see it. Down here, this is painted, and that was one of my problems. So your bond is going to be as good as the paint is to this here, and I would recommend your mortar on your stones, right? Your mortar on your stones is not going to stick to paint, and I'll show you that later on. Now, here's the other thing that I'm doing. I didn't trust myself to calculate perfectly if I'd started from a lower section to work my way up and find myself in a good situation where everything fit perfectly. So the other option here, which you can do with the particular mortar that I'm using, I'll show you in a minute, is the top down method. Now, this is my ledge stone, which is pretty much like a 22-inch. It's no joke. I mean, it's really like, this is like only less than half of one, and it's pretty heavy. And I put the mortar on there, stuck it on, held it for maybe 15 seconds, and that sucker stuck there and stayed. So it's possible. I mean, that's the heaviest stone that you'll be putting on the wall. So as far as getting these others up, it's not a problem at all. It's just, if you get the mortar mix right and your surface is prepared correctly. By the way, after skimming this up with a trowel, you'll want to get a masonry brush and brush the surface to create some sort of grooves or whatever, so that the mortar will adhere much better. So as you can see, this is the stack top down method that I'm using here, and I'll show you when I'm actually applying things. You'll see how the moisture just gets absorbed out of the mortar and it sticks right to the wall. So this is the mortar I'm using for the actual stones. I got it from Home Depot, and it's definitely sticks better than the S. I believe you can use the S, but this definitely has a better adhesion, and obviously it's made for that, so why not buy it? It's just a touch more expensive because the bag's smaller, but it's not going to break the bank. Also, when you're applying your mesh and you run into corners like this, tip for you to install that is just get a chisel, like a wide blade flat chisel, and once you get to this corner, don't attach it to one side, only with this side here. Once you get to the corner, start hitting it with a chisel and hammer to make this nice crease, so that it's not round. I mean, you want it like this. Round is not going to work for you, so that's just a tip for there. And then once you get like that, you can start putting the nails in on that side, and you have an inside corner like that. As far as outside corners go, you just really basically, I already started putting these stones on, so I don't have any more corners left. You just basically need to massage it around the corner, maybe bang with a hammer just to get, kind of like a nice straight edge. This is cinder block still, but my edges were pretty fairly like that, maybe not as sharp, but worked as well. When you install corners, outside corners, something, you really just, I was running along with it here on one side and just, making sure that the stones would fit into these slots, which they do, because the corners usually run a little bit bigger and sometimes too big, which ends up making your runs get screwed up. So if you have a stone that's a little bit higher on the edges like that, you'll grind that down, and that'll give you enough to just get a more precision fit. And even if it's a little wider, once you start running it, you just make your corrections to tighten everything up, and it looks fine. Even if there are gaps, you probably won't even be able to see them, that it'll be that noticeable. So corners, you can start first, just go straight up, and you stagger them. Basically, I have 3 sizes here. Obviously, you got the short edge, and you got this size here, which is like, I think 4 or 5, and then an 8-inch section as well. And as you can see here, I got the long one here, did the short here going in the other direction, and then I did a 4-inch here, then short, then long, then short, and there's going to be another 4-inch one down here. So just stagger it so that you don't have the same seam going straight up like that, because then you'll start to see that seam. So this is only like every other stone, so it won't be so bad. So regarding the corners, usually these edges are a little bit raised, and that leads you to have larger gaps with the stones that follow on this side. So what I do with all of these cornerstones is I just grind these down flat so I can get them as tight as possible, so that the following stones that run along it don't end up having gaps that I have to correct in the future. So I work in small batches and do a little bit every day, because this is, you know, I have a job, and I do this in my spare time. So mix a small batch, do, you know, just a bunch of stones every day, and eventually the job is getting done. So what I'll do is I use a hose, and I use a mist. And it just makes it a lot easier to mix, and the water's added slowly while you're mixing, and it just makes my life a lot easier. So I'm going to show you in a little bit the consistency that I happen to like. So we're really looking at, you know, a very fluid consistency. Wetter, I found, is better. If you make a dry batch, that's when it'll stick to the wall, not so much to the back of the stone. It'll dry out when you're working with it and stuff. You don't really want to add water. So now you got to make sure this is like really mixed through, that there's no dry spots. And whatever pan you're mixing in, if it's a pan or a bucket or whatever, a pot like I'm using here, this is a spare pot. But whatever you're using to mix this in, just make sure there's no dry patches, and take your time mixing it so that it's good. So now once you mix it and you have it like this, then you let it sit for 5 minutes. 5-10 minutes, and it'll slake. It'll get hard. Once it gets hard, don't get crazy. It's not like you made it too dry. You have to reactivate it by mixing it again, and it'll get right back to this consistency. Okay, and then you're ready to go with applying your mortar. So shout out to supplydog.com. This is where I ordered my stones from. They were the least expensive. I did order a sampler from them. It was like a sample board for like 25 bucks, and gave me the confidence to order the stone, and the stones came in even better than the sample board, honestly. The only issue is you have to pay for shipping. This is heavy stuff. I think shipping was like, I had 3 pallets. These are all the cornerstones that I have, and I'll show you how they get mixed up. But it's like $800, and when you factor that into your cost, it was still cheaper than me buying it locally here in New Jersey. So it worked out well for me, and I like the product. This is a Provia Sage Gray Precision Fit Flat. Each box is 5 square feet, and it comes like one box. This is basically 3 sizes. You get a 13-inch, a 9-inch, and then these here, and they're shipped pretty nicely, stacked pretty nicely. Very minimal broken stones here, and that's like a 22-inch stone there. So the boxes are all sorted. You got boxes with all the long ones, boxes with half 9-inch, half 13, and you install them like flooring. You just stagger them, you know, short, medium, long, and then start again, short, medium, long. Do the running bond, and just make sure your seams aren't staggered. So these are the tools I'm using for installation. Brush to clean off the surface in case it rained or whatever, and any dirt kicked up. I'll just brush that down. My level, just to make sure I'm going straight. You could use a level as you go, or you could draw lines with a larger level so that you could just track how your trajectory is going if you're skewing or whatever. But once you do your top level, it's straight. Shouldn't be an issue to follow, but you just want to check every now and then how you're going. tape measure for cuts just to see what you need. This little guy was useful to rake things out and sometimes get the corners of where it dried off to get other stones to fit properly. And I'm using my small trowel to just apply to the back of each, so the back butter to the back of each stone. So that's what I'm using here. As you can see, my mix is hard now. I can't even really move it. See, it just came out like a chunk like that. See how it just got hard? So I'm going to thoroughly mix this, and it's going to turn right back into that flowy form that I had previously. So just so you know, if it gets like this, you just have to mix up the whole batch again real thoroughly, and it'll just get back. And after that, it'll stay. It won't turn hard again. Okay. Okay, also, just another installation tip. When you do an inside corner, what you want to do is basically alternate. You know, if this side stone is going against the opposite wall, then, I mean, I didn't do it here exactly. I tried to do it afterwards, but then your next stone should go first from this side, and then vice versa. You know, one from this side, the next one from that side, and then this side, and that side. You know, so it looks just, you know, it kind of mixes in well. You know, I didn't actually do it on every stone here. You can see from the bottom, this stone went first, and this one, and this one, and this one. So it looks pretty good the way it is. But just to show you, you know, you do however you want. But you know, if you alternate which side hits the corner, I think it looks better. Here's another tip. If you have a stone that comes and from its casting process has these edges on here, you don't want to install it like that, because it'll just interfere with how your setup goes and make things out of line and uneven and stuff like that. So you could use a trowel like this to knock them off, or I had just found a stone, like a paper stone, that was laying around. I've gotten used to using this because it's kind of like, I guess, to sand the edges and stuff like that, and I'll just, you know, just knock them off like that, and give it a little rub, and then I'm good to go. Okay, so now we're at the installation process. I've determined that my next stone that I need to be installing, because it goes in a pattern, because I have a long one here, short one here, and a medium one here. The next one will be a long one. So I usually, for the ones that are under the sill, try to get something that has a beefier edge, just to give a little extra support to the sill. And I dry fit first, because you'll put the stone up and it'll fit better one way or another, or look better one way or another. So this particular stone, I tried both ways, and I would determine that, you know, it looks best in this fashion, or actually fits best in this fashion, because they're not 100% perfect, right? And at that point, I'll put a level under it, and as long as you're in your bubble, it's on the floor, I'm just showing you, but when the bubble's in between the lines, it doesn't have to be perfectly centered, but as long as it's within, you're fine. And now, as per the directions on the back of that mortar bag, it says to moisten. I got a rag, you know, and I'll wipe it down to get any, you know, dust from manufacturing or whatever off, and it probably allows for the mortar to attach better. I did have a couple of stones, wasn't exactly sure if it was because I didn't moisten or just the batch that I made. They fell off the wall completely clean, and the mortar was stuck to the wall here. So after that happened a couple of times, I started cleaning. I started making my mortar a little bit looser, because as you'll see when I put this up, it's going to make a ring, and that keeps growing of the moisture that it's absorbing. So the other thing, when I apply the mortar, which you'll see in a second, on the larger stones, as per the directions on the back of the bag, it says to leave a void in the middle. That promotes more suction and for me it's gonna work. Trying to do this with one hand. I usually do it too, so the stone's on the floor. But this is how I prep my stone. I'll basically take my mortar and just slap a bunch on. No, not even. All right, slap a bunch on all the way across, and then I'll work it. And I need more. Usually on the edge that it ends with, I'll put more because that's an edge that I'll want to seal, and I'll show you that later. And what I'll do is I'll usually grab this with my hand and then just butter it. I'm buttering my stone. I'll do it over the pot so I could, any excess falls in there, if anything. Another tip is when you do put the stone up, you're going to give it a little shimmy in order to really get the mortar to adhere correctly, and some of the mortar will fall out. So rather than just lose all this mortar, I catch it, and I usually put something like this is paper that came in with the stones on the corner pieces, a piece of shim or whatever, catch it, and then throw it back in the pot. The pieces that actually fall on here automatically start losing moisture because this is a porous material, and it sucks right in. So now it's a little bit less liquidy, and you're able to, if you need to fill a spot or something in the corner or whatever, whatnot, you know, you're able to do that a little bit easier than if it's really moist mortar. So this is basically how I do it basically. So after I butter everything on here, I'll take the middle section here on a larger stone, and I'll just push to either edge to leave a void in the middle, and then add a little extra on the edge that's going to finish. And you'll see once I install it. Let me see if I could do this while I'm filming, you know, because this is an easy spot. If it's a little shaky, then sorry, but bring it up to the wall. I'll start close because you don't want mortar to prevent you from getting this joint close. So you start close, put it up, push, and then do a little shimmy. Now you see mortar falling already. It comes out like that. You're gonna take your finger and just run that underneath, and that helps to set the stone. I'll show you in a bit. Just to show you, that was that first stone that I installed. You could see how the moisture is getting sucked out of the mortar and how it's spreading into the substrate here. So, and that's what creates the suction to keep the stone on the wall without moving. Okay, so this is my stone buttered, and I'm ready to attach it. Like I said, don't start too far away because then you'll have mortar squeeze out and it'll prevent you from getting a close fit over here. So always start with it close and then press on and start shimmying. As long as you continue shimmying, it's fine, but once you stop, that is it. Because once you stop, it starts to set immediately. If you try to readjust this stone, it's gonna pop right off. I've done it, and it's every single time that's what's happened. So the mortar, it's done right now. That's it. You can't touch it anymore. So I'm just gonna push these back in to the corner to create a better seal. I just kind of run my finger along the bottom to get whatever squeezed out, and just give it a nice seal as well. There's a little gap. I'll take whatever fell and just squeeze it in. So that it kind of looks like that. And that stone's not going anywhere. So remember, initial placement close to the gap so you don't get anything to squeeze in the between. Then shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. And don't touch it again, because if I try to adjust this right now, it'll pop right off. Okay, so this is another little tip. When you're doing corners, whether they be outside or inside, this is an inside corner that I cut here. And after you cut a corner, don't throw it out, because the remaining piece can be in opposing sides. Like this is a piece that I cut for an outside corner, and now it's become my inside corner, and I don't really have to make another cut. So initially you'll need something like a speed square. And what you'll do, if you don't know how to use a speed square, is you'll put the edge on the top here, and then you'll, obviously corners are going to be 45 degrees, right? The 90-degree corners split in half is 45, so that's the number you'll be watching. So what you'll do is you'll rotate this until the line 45 lines up with that edge right there, and that edge right here is where you draw your line. You see how, let me see if I can get a shot here. 45. You see how that line right there, kind of, this is the previous line that I struck, and that's how you get your 45-degree angle. Now, it's not going to be perfect sometimes, and you'll have a piece as you cut through. You could even leave this piece in here because your joint's not going to be that tight, and this will help actually grab some mortar. So if your cut is not 100% perfect, when you fill it with mortar, it'll be fine. It'll look fine. You'll get it close. The angle might be slightly off or whatever, but once you put it up there as best you can, don't put it too close. Leave like maybe 3/8 of an inch gap and fill it with mortar. It'll look fine. All right. So this is my grinder setup. One of these stones wasn't fitting as well as I'd like it to, and I could see that there's a little bit of a taper on this stone here, so I'm just going to grind off the back edge here and bring it even with this front lip, and that should give me just enough to get it a little bit better. Maybe not perfect, but better. And then I can adjust as I go along. I have my grinder on a wood block. Makes it easier. You can see the cuts in it when you're doing cuts all the way through, and it's elevated, so it's easier to work with. One trick here that I've gotten from other people that I've seen. I think a guy on YouTube, forgot his name. If I remember it, I'll let you know. Good mason on YouTube, but you gotta blow it like this, or a fan or something, you know. Blow it, and when you cut, it just blows everything out and gone, and you're not breathing in all this concrete dust. It's just not so great. So just point it towards your work, it blows it away, and you're good to go. I'll show you what it looks like after. Now, grinders are really loud, so I would say definitely wear eye protection because the chips do kick up all over the place, and the grinder is super loud. So now you can see the edge that I grinded off, and you really won't be able to see that when you install it. So that's what I did to get a little bit better fitment, and the blower was just getting everything away from me as far as dust goes.